Actors, we've all got issues, so let's talk about them. I'm your host, Juan Ayala, and this is Actors with Issues. Hello, ladies, gentlemen, and non-binary friends. Welcome to another episode of Actors with Issues, where we talk shop with guests from TV, film, and Broadway. I'm your host, Juan Ayala, and joining us from New York City, please welcome an actor of stage and screen you've seen in campaigns for major brands like Starbucks, Milk and Maruchan. Please welcome to the stage, Bibin Shrestha. Bibin, thank you so much for being here. Welcome, buddy.
Oh, thanks for having me, man. I feel like this was a long time coming.
We've been talking about this for such a long
For
time. I was
real.
like, you know what? Let's do it.
Absolutely, man. It's always a pleasure with you too
Yeah.
whenever we talk.
Thank you, thank you. So I'm curious. I feel like I don't really know your origin stories in terms of acting. When did you first get bitten by that acting bug and sort of make that decision of like, this is what I want to do for a living?
It didn't happen for me until college. I
Mm,
used to play basketball throughout high school and college, and after my season was over, I just didn't know what to do with my life, and that kind of hit me that I needed to figure out sooner than later.
mm,
Because at the time, I was already in my mid-20s, and I just didn't have any type of sort of direction.
yeah.
And I've always felt like the black wolf of the family, where my sister already had a plan. So at that time, I also wanted to work on my public speaking and speech. So I changed my majors or took speech classes, business classes, but it just didn't sit well with me. And at the time, I was sort of talking to this girl who was in part of the theater program.
Mm,
And learning about the theater program, I kind of said, why not take a class, see what happens? But knowing myself, I just went all in and took a class. And next thing you know, I'm auditioning for a play, which I got the part. It was a small part, which
mm,
I absolutely was grateful for. But that experience itself taught me that I can do this. Being from Nepal, this was something that seemed very impossible. But at the time, my teacher, my director, he saw something in me. He believed in me to the point where, less than a month into the show, a lot of people got fired during a college production.
really?
And that kind of boosted my role within that play. And it was a musical, and I was scared.
Yeah.
I didn't know if I could do a solo singing. I'm not a singer. I've never been trained. And I think that exactly when I saw the opportunity to challenge myself.
Mm,
And work ethic is something I'm big on ever since I was an athlete. So that carried over. And my teacher believed in me to the point where I got one of the lead roles at the end. And after that, it was just I didn't want to stop. So that's when it really hit me. And I finished my college degree for my mom, and then I got my bachelor's in theater as well.
mm. I feel like we have so many parallels. Like my sister has her degree in public health and she's always had it sort of figured out. And what you just said, he said, I finished my degree for my mom, and I'm like, I kind of did it for my parents. I didn't really
Yeah.
want to finish because it took me a while to finish. Mind you, it was like during, I was going to finish and then COVID happened. And I think it was literally just paperwork that I needed to finish to like, or they waived another requirement. And then my professor had reached out to me. He's like, hey, the program's not doing well. So can you please just fill out this form and you will like officially finish and graduate to, boost their numbers. So I did,
Yeah.
and eventually finished. And I was like, okay, mom, dad, happy. There's your piece of paper that says I finished. Can I go back
Right.
to work now?
That's exactly for my mom too.
Yeah.
Being an immigrant, that's her hope that her
Yeah.
kids do better. And for me, seeing her work hard for her kids, it was this passion I had within myself that okay, this is a goal that I can achieve. And theater was that for me,
Yeah.
where I hated math, I hated school, period. And with theater program, you only needed one math class. And that's when
Right.
I was sold on
Yeah.
that I could do this. And all right, I'm pretty good at it. The fact that I'm getting A plus in my classes, that said something at the time, and
Yeah.
said, you know what, this is it. I'm rolling with it, whether mom or my sister likes it or not. Because at the time I felt that they thought it was a phase that I was going through,
Mhm.
theater. What is this? He's figuring it out. He might be too late on things, but I was like, hey, this is my time.
Yeah, and it's funny because we hold so many of these actors to such a great esteem. Now they're considered legends, but you look back, like when was their first film? When they were 30. They broke
Right.
out their first big TV role and they're like 40. It's like it happens to so many people. So few actors, become those iconic. Not everyone's a Leonardo DiCaprio who's like, Oscar nominated as a teenager in his 20s. It's like
Sure.
that's, one in a thousand actors end up with that sort of trajectory. But the rest, it's like they just got to put in the work. And I feel like those of us who know that can stick it out, and we just kind of keep, fight the good fight and just keep going. And I feel like we just know that once you have that mindset of like, yeah, this is a marathon, not a
Right.
sprint, then you're
Yeah.
like, okay, yeah, we're good. We're okay. It was
Yeah.
a
And we
slow
all have
year.
our,
There's gonna be a lot of those.
for sure. And we all have our own journey and process to kind of, you know, our foundation is very different. Some of my friends who started when they were a lot younger, and I'm in my mid 20s, and I know people who are just starting out in their mid 30s. So
Right.
it's different for everybody. And I realized that my time, everything happens for a reason. And I'm a big believer on that. And I guess, part of me did wanted to start earlier on. Now that I'm in, in the industry and whatnot, like I wish I could have started earlier so I could be better. But then I said to myself, with the experience that I lived in my life, those experiences taught me more than in any acting classes could ever.
Yeah.
And I think acting classes are great when you find that teacher that works well with you, or even the agents managers. If it could be a very high profile agencies, but if you don't mash well with them, it doesn't matter. It just
Yeah.
doesn't work out well. And that was my kind of a thing when I was in New York, that I was so in rush to get with an agency or a manager that whoever kind of was open to repping me, I was like, hey, come on, let's do it.
Right.
And that turned real sour really quick. And it just comes with being inexperienced, because college they don't teach you very well, like, or a
Yeah.
lot about the business aspect of things.
Yeah.
So once I started to take control of my life, where I said I am going to move to Los Angeles, which was something I've never done, moving to a different state for a career. So it's a risk I took. And then I just said, I parted ways with my manager. I said, it's not working out because the vision did not match.
Yeah.
Like the way we thought about where my career was headed, it was just wasn't a good energy with that. There
Yeah.
wasn't a good flow with that. And once I started taking classes, that's when I realized my own power, like who I am as a human being and what I could offer to the projects I'm a part of, or the people I surround myself with, because they are an extension of who I am and they're representing me, you
Right.
know? And that kind of taught the whole experience taught me to be myself no matter who's sitting across from me. And I think bringing that energy, people realize that I don't necessarily need anybody,
Mhm.
regardless of who is in the room. And what I mean by that is, when I first started trying to get my reels together, I always thought, like, man, I need this person to help me build my reel up or my resume up. But then I realized that a few years later, I'm like, although we didn't work together, but I'm fine with where I'm at. I'm totally content. I'm still learning, but it's just a matter of the right tribe will come to you.
You also mentioned like building your tribe, or building that group of people to come around you, and that partnership. I feel is something that actors think, young actors at least think like, I need an agent. It's like, agents need you too. They need clients to
Right.
generate revenue. This is a partnership.
Mm-hmm.
It's I love when folks sort of talk about show business as a business. Like, you're the CEO of your acting brand, and when you
Right.
have an agent or manager, it's like you just brought in a CFO or a
Mm-hmm.
COO or a vice president of whatever. It's like you're just expanding your brand, your business. I feel like that's really important and not talked about that much. I feel like folks are just like, and it's good advice, obviously, when they're like, follow your dreams, work hard. It's like, yes, but be smart, work smarter, not harder.
Yeah.
There's so much to unpack there.
Absolutely. And that comes with, what I said earlier, that you have to know who you are. Obviously, you use yourself all the time as an actor when you're working on a project, when you're creating something. But outside of acting, who are you?
Mm.
And I think that was the major question for myself that I'm always asking, like, who am I outside of this industry? So that took living my life a little bit more,
Yeah.
not just staying in classes. And I think that helped me understand my own needs with what I want to do, as far as the type of projects I want to work on and what's important to me. And recently, something, I don't know what happened, but the fact that maybe it's the pandemic, maybe it's a strike, or being away from family, and I realized how important family is,
Mm.
and also how important that you have to find something outside of acting that is important to you, whether it is a cause, a good cause that you can, spend time on, or giving, helping another person, or just spending time doing what you love outside of acting. There has to be, you can't be, one of the biggest lessons I learned being an athlete is that you can't obsess over acting, because it's just such a negative energy that comes with that. Be passionate about it, but
Mm.
also know that, it's okay to be rejected. You got to get used to it fast. And that's something you got to be comfortable with. And, you know, the more you go on with it, the easier it becomes. But it's always going to be there.
With so much information out there, what comes to mind is like a misconception you had going into the acting business that you have since realized was something completely untrue, or like, oh, that was a complete lie. Like that's not something that actually happens, even though everyone swears that it does.
Right. I think with COVID, with the pandemic, like you mentioned, a lot of people are kind of advertising what they could do for you, right?
Right.
Where if you, it's the whole idea of pay to play, and it still happens. And unfortunately, younger actors or green actors, they get, they see something and they get excited about it without doing any sort of research. And one thing I learned, the pandemic was surprisingly the best thing that happened to myself and my career,
Mm.
um, because I was able to connect to the people from the West Coast all over the world.
Right.
And that happened through Zoom. And, we met through Zoom during
Right.
that time, and we used to read plays all the time. So I think it just matter. It's, you got to take the risk to put yourself out there. That's one thing. But you also want to do your research as to who you're dealing with. No matter who I meet, I always search them up, look anything up, whatever I can use or learn about them beforehand. I think it's always great. And with COVID, the whole self-tape world has opened up, and opened up so
Oh yeah.
many doors. 95% of the time it's self-tape. And the fact that I didn't need a reel to get my representation, I did it
Mm.
through self-tape, which I didn't have to, I paid $0 for. So taking a class, take a self-tape class, or, learn from somebody, a teacher or mentor. That's so important in this industry too, for
Mm.
them to kind of guide you. And yes, the blueprint, it does not work for everybody.
Right.
Right? Like, that's how it works. And I think one of the best ways to put it is that just utilize what's in right now, which is self-tapes.
Mm.
If you have three good self-tapes with your range, whatever you want to do, certain targets you want to hit, um, your easiest or closest access to the industry, those type of roles, you could put that on a self-tape, and I
Yeah.
guarantee they would look at it the same way how casting directors look at an audition.
Yeah.
So that's the best way to put it, is that you don't need to spend hundreds of dollars on production company to build your reel,
Right.
or you don't need to, pay certain, I don't know what's out there now. So you don't need to pay. That's what I'm saying. Like, save your money, do your research,
Yeah.
and instead use your money to invest in yourself, meaning take a class. I think classes helps. When you find that good teacher you learn from, and you meet that community of actors who are working, and you see what they do and
Mm.
how they do things differently. Because I think that's what kind of that's how my mind kind of changed in that direction of like, okay, so many people are doing this, I'm gonna try this and see what happens.
I had a general years ago with a network, and they had told me I had like one really good clip from an actual booking, and then a
Mm,
few other shorter clips from some of those um, self tape services. But I was someone's scene partner, so I hadn't necessarily paid for them. You
right,
basically get paid with footage, which is it's very smart of them because they get good people, and then you get something in return. Um, and I remember the casting, they're like the VP of casting for this network, and they had told me, they're like, yeah, that one clip you have is really good, but like you don't need all the other little ones. Like they're like, less is more, quality over quantity. You can have like one really good clip from something you booked, and then just do a scene from a self tape, and that's enough. We just need to see some range, not necessarily huge variety. Just
right.
like one comedic, one dramatic, one, something that's fully produced, like if it is from a short film or another booking of some kind, something that looks like a legit project
Yeah,
versus these. I just feel like it's almost like when you see a bunch of actors all use the same headshot photographer. I'm like, all of your guys' headshots look exactly the same. It's like, this isn't showing me who you are, it's showcasing the photographer's style versus who you are in these photos and your brand and all of that. And I feel like there's just a lot of sort of weird importance put on what a reel is and what headshots are or what they're supposed to be versus, you know, what they actually are supposed to serve you.
absolutely. And I think speaking of headshots too, a lot of people make, including myself, at some point made the mistake of hiring your friend to take your headshots,
Yeah.
right? And I see a lot of people are not spending as much on quality headshots. I think that's one thing I would say, invest in and do your research on the photographers, right? Who they have shots, do they, your type, your skin tone, how do they shoot that?
Right.
And it's really important to invest that money towards the headshots because that's the first thing casting sees. And I think I've seen a couple of my friends, like, they're like, oh, okay, this is cheaper, so I might go this route. And, I tell them, but it's at the end of the day, it's your decision, it's your
Yeah.
career. And I've always said that I want to work with the best people in the industry. So why not start right now from the foundation of my career? So
Right.
yeah, that's one of the biggest mistakes I see people doing is being very cheap with the headshots.
Yeah. Getting the $150 package, it's like you're gonna get pictures that look like they cost $150.
Exactly.
For,
Yeah.
mind you, like $2,000 is also ridiculous. Like that is an outrageous amount of money. There is always like somewhere in the middle. Like I got amazing headshots. Um, I think for like 450 or $500, and had a
Right.
great variety. My agents liked them. My managers, I booked roles, not necessarily booked roles off of headshots, but I got auditions off of the headshots at least. But there's always that middle ground. But there's the don't spend too much and don't spend that little because
Right.
there is that sort of lack of quality. And again, some of the people who charge $2,000, all of their photos look the same. So, like you said with skin tone, it's like, do they know how to light someone of your skin tone, or are
That
most of their
right.
clients of a fairer skin tone and whatnot? Like, you and I are two very different skin tones. Like, we would
Yeah,
not be photographed the same way.
definitely not. And
Yeah,
with that is also once you take your headshots, right? Your agents or manager might not like them, so you might have to retake it. So you also have to think
yeah,
about that as well. Does it work well enough that you can get a rep team, and then do you have enough saved to get another one if needed, or
yeah.
addition to what you already have? So you got to think about those things too.
Yeah. And it's the same with reels. I feel like certain, like those sort of reel production companies, those are good for getting a rep. But it's like
Yeah,
you just spent how much money just to get a rep, and now for casting, they're like, "Oh, we need you to self-tape a monologue or self-tape something else because that's better for this." It's like, so this was sort of like a one-off or whatever. It's like with certain headshots, it's like, okay, they like your look, they don't have your type on their roster, so they'll take you on as a client. But then like, oh, but this doesn't work for procedural. This doesn't work for sitcoms. These aren't good commercial headshots. Like there's all this variety of types of headshots you need. If you,
yeah,
some I feel like people who do theater, and I've said this so many times. So apologies for those listening who have heard it so many times. But I feel like folks who do only theater, not really do TV, film, or even commercial, their headshots are more of like a here's a picture of me. While TV and film actors is like, here are my types, here's the range I can play based on how I look and whatnot. So it's like you need that. And people who update their headshots constantly, I'm like, you look the same as last year. You haven't changed your look in any way. Why are you spending so much money on headshots?
For
And
sure.
again, unless your reps tell you like you need to update things, but most people that I see who get new headshots all the time, I'm just like, you didn't need these, but okay, variety's
Right.
fine.
And the crazy part is with my reps, when they first saw me, I probably had my haircut close to a buzz cut
Mhm.
or even somewhere in the mid, right? Now that my hair is all grown, I still haven't gotten new headshots, but it still works.
Right,
And that's another thing you have to really look at. Do you really need new headshots, or can you save that money towards something else more productive
exactly.
that could? And I always say go back to taking more classes or new classes
Yeah,
that, you know, so spend
yeah,
your money wisely.
yeah. And we both know Wendy from TMFA, and she says all the time, like, don't don't marry one teacher. She's like, do their course, train with them for a few months, and then go try someone else, see what else works. Like, you don't have to stick with the same teachers. And if teachers, get upset that you stop studying with them, it's like, well, that doesn't sound like a very healthy sort of relationship with a teacher and a student if they're, upset that like you I don't know why some teachers think that there's like loyalty built in. It's like, no, we're just trying a different thing. Like if in college and high school, different teachers teach different things. So if one of them self-tape technique and one is scene work and one is Shakespeare, one is classical theater, one is contemporary, one's musical theater, like it makes sense to go to multiple teachers. I feel like that's really important too, because I feel like a lot of young actors maybe just want to. It's like, I found a great teacher, I'm going to stay with them forever. It's like, well, you're not really, you might not improve and learn new techniques that way by sticking with just one person.
For sure, I agree with that. And I think in that process, you also learn that who fits best for you when
Right.
you need that go-to audition, you need coaching for that, or who you want to continue studying with for the long run. And it's just a matter of taking chances with different teacher, learning, picking up different little things and adding to your craft overall. So
Yeah. So we are coming close to our time, but we just added a new segment to the end of our show called Life's Big Questions. So they're just sort of rapid fire questions we're gonna throw your way. If you could have any superpower, which would you choose?
I would say I've always said teleport. So I can go anywhere
Same.
in
It
the
can go
world.
anywhere,
I can
anytime.
go anywhere in
Yeah.
the world.
You're never late to anything, and if you are, it's like, bro, you could teleport. Why are you late?
Right, exactly. I'm like, sorry.
Right. Coffee or tea?
I'm T.
Where do you get your news?
Oh man, that was a cell phone. It's always that, that first thing. Try not to look at it, but
Right. Google alerts. Just
exactly, it's there.
singing or dancing?
I love both actually.
Hmm.
I enjoy both. I can't pick one. It
Yeah.
depends on the day, I guess.
Self-tape or in person?
Ooh, I would go with self-tape.
Same. Does pineapple belong on pizza?
Yes, sorry. I know I'm a New
I
Yorker, but
agree.
hey,
No, no.
I do like
I was gonna
pineapple.
argue here. Let us know in the comments if you're angry about pineapple on pizza. What movie never fails to make you laugh?
Tropic Thunder. Strange,
Good
but
choice. Nah, it's a
very
great choice.
controversial maybe, but it's funny.
Yeah. In one word, what's your favorite part about acting?
Life.
Hmm. I feel like I know the answer to this. What's the most spontaneous thing you've ever done?
Moving to Los Angeles.
Hmm. What is a TV show or film you feel is underrated?
Oh, there are so many low key. Not low key, but no. Underrated, huh? Jeez. I don't know. Man, I'm stuck on that one.
You're good. What is your favorite theatrical performance you've seen live?
Theatrical is alive. I would say the Jersey Boys. It was an
Oh, yeah,
off
yeah,
Broadway, and that song, it just hits me every time I listen to it.
yeah.
He's just too good to be true.
Oh, yeah.
Frankie Valli.
Would you rather do 100 episodes of a popular sitcom or 13 episodes of a gritty, critically acclaimed limited series?
13.
This is sort of like a money over art type of thing because learn sitcoms, they can be funny, but
Yeah.
um, if you could sit down for dinner with any actor, dead or alive, who would it be?
I'd say Denzel Washington.
Mm.
Yeah.
Okay, and let's build your ultimate dream role. So you have to choose TV, film, or theater.
Film.
What's the genre?
I'm going with something gritty that has humor in it too.
Okay. Are you the
Otherwise,
hero or the villain?
ooh, that's a great question. I love an anti-hero kind of a
Okay.
situation. Where it's,
Who's your co-star?
hmm, I would say, God, this is such a great questions too. If somebody's playing more seasoned actress, it would be Viola Davis.
Mm.
Or if it's more on a romantic side, it would probably be, geez, there's so many. I'm
It's like who's he's
sorry.
like who's my celebrity crush right now?
I know it used to be Angelina Jolie when I was younger, but
Mhm,
now it might be different. Who knows?
mhm.
Yeah.
And lastly, in 10 words or less, what advice would you give to a young actor?
Trust in your own journey, build your own foundation. And yeah, pretty much.
Awesome. Well, Bibin, thank you so much for joining us on the show today, man. Such a pleasure talking with you. And I feel like we covered such a wide variety of topics. So really appreciate you sharing all your
You
insight.
know,
Thank you.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me, and hopefully it helps somebody out there.
Absolutely. Totally. Thanks for joining us. Be sure to subscribe to Actors with Issues on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts, and visit our YouTube channel for full video interviews. Actors with Issues is executive produced and hosted by Juani Ala. See you next time.